situation. So apparently, there was a woman that was followed out of Zara, quite frankly, chased down in Zara by three employees. They stated that she was stealing. Now, when I saw the first video, it did look like she had merchandise in her hand. Once she got pulled over, she called the cops and everything. Like, she didn't have any merchandise. That's the thing about the internet. Let me just say that, right? We get these little clips, these 30-second, 45-second clips, and we don't really know the full story, right? Now, of course, I'm looking at the comment section. Now, this is a predominantly like black education page. So I'm looking at the comments and the commentators, hey, baby, the commentators are immediately like, this is racism and just really, really like OD, right? And my first thought was she was definitely stealing, right? And obviously, I can't even be so absolute, but what reason would they have to chase you out of the store if you weren't stealing, right? Like, nobody's going to chase you out of the store if you weren't stealing. Okay, baby, we might not be able to do this live right now, but nobody's going to chase you out of the store if you're not stealing. And then it's like, if you weren't stealing, why didn't you stop and be like, what are y'all doing? Let's just have a conversation. Right? Why are you chasing me? Right? You're only gonna run if you're guilty. So these conversations about her being afraid and all of those stuff, like, no. And it does start to get to a point where we have to stop taking these situations where there are people who are being unlawful, right? And defending against criminality. It's a bad look. And that is not what we're fighting for. That is not the purpose. That is a very unserious situation. And judging by a 45-second clip and just looking at the content creators page and who does do the work of, educating African American communities, we have to be mindful when we're being emotionally charged, right? Because that everything that the content creator put up, they started, making references in regards to slavery. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? So my thing is this, okay? If you are going to be somebody who engages in criminality in American society as a person of color, all right, the consequences that follow, I don't really know if that's the work of advocacy in 2026 or it needs to be the work of advocacy moving forward, right? I don't think we need to be defending people rather who choose to engage in criminality. I'm not going to bat for somebody who was in the wrong, period. And I'm not going to be insensitive and list any names, right? Because we understand that black people are still getting harsher sentences, right? Like, it's still up and it's stuck. But with that awareness, with that consciousness as a POC, all right, you need to know that. You need to know before I engage in this that this is going to go really bad for me. Right? This is going to go really bad for me because we're still fighting and we're still doing the work, right? So if I choose to engage in unlawful behavior, all right, if I choose to wow out, if I choose to do what I'm gonna do, I gotta pay the price for that. I gotta pay the price for that. And I can't sit here and be like, whoa, it's me when I'm doing 30 to life. I can't sit here and be like, whoa, it's me when I'm experiencing quote unquote injustice, when I put myself in this situation. So it gets to a point we have to start having these conversations. Like, exactly are we advocating for? Now, like I said, I can't sit here and really say what the situation was. I only seen we all only seen about 30-second clips, right? We can't base no type of determination, but to say somebody's not stealing when they're running through the mall, darting, sprinting to the car, what are you afraid of? It's not the cops. What are you afraid of? What reason would you have to run out of this, run, dashing through the mall, dashing through the food court, darting into the car? What reason would you have to do all that if you weren't stealing? You could have simply turned around. What are you doing? Get out. Excuse me? I beg your pardon? She sounded like a very articulate woman when she was talking to the police. What's the problem? What's the problem? What is the problem? And then to call the police afterwards, I mean, I don't understand. It's not really making any sense to me. And this is the type of stuff that I be talking about. I had a situation in my city. You know what I mean? A very unfortunate situation, but the person was in the wrong. Period. In the wrong. Flat out. I'm not going to say the situation because it was a very unfortunate situation. People lost their lives, but it's just like, come on. You like, if you wanna do the crime, you gotta do the time. What are we doing? We have to start, what are we doing? That's not what we're advocating for, and at this point, like, what message are we sending? That if you're Black, you just automatically get the benefit of the doubt? You automatically deserve to be heard? You automatically deserve to feel like a to what? To feel like what? Thanks, Keystar girl. I did it myself, girl. Thank you. So what message are we sending, y'all? Because it just gets to a point. So I know the internet can make us very reactionary. Like, y'all know, we get online, it's like we see something. If you're an educator, right, of African American history, very charged. The first thing you want to do is pop off. Oh, relax. Right. Because we don't know. We don't know. But at the end of the day, in my mind, I'm not finna run through the mall. I'm not running from anybody. You know what I mean? Unless I stole something. You know what I'm saying? You're running like you stole something. All right. And so if she stole something, then it's fair game at that point. Just because maybe you wouldn't chase somebody out of the store. You know what I mean? But here's the thing, it doesn't even matter because, like I said, if you weren't stealing in the first place, this wouldn't even be something that we all need to advocate for. We wouldn't even have to be out here on the front lines for you, girl. We don't have to. We wouldn't even have to be on tickety talk talking about finding Ben Crump for you, girl. We won't have to do that. We wouldn't have to do that. If you weren't stealing, it was very simple. They ain't got no gun. Excuse me? Hello? I beg your pardon? If you don't Girl, if you don't get off my bag, are you okay? Yeah, you want to go through my bag? That's fine. I need to talk to your manager. Oh, yes, absolutely. And what is your name? Okay, because we're gonna have, yeah, escalation. I'm not gonna be dashing through like, no. What am I running from? Excuse me? I beg your pardon? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really understand. Now, what we can talk about economic inequality. And we can talk about why people may be feeling pressured, to engage in theft and, 2026 giving influencer culture and consumerism. All right. We can maybe talk about that because clearly she must be an influencer if she thought to have gone through a quote unquote traumatic experience and the first thing was to run online. Now, granted, we're not going to be too harsh, right? Because a lot of people do that now. But me personally, if I was so distraught, I would not be coming online. That's just insane. Exactly. Nobody is above the law. And I don't know if that's you know, I don't know if it's because I'm a little bit older than the girls, or maybe I'm more mature. I don't know. I'm not above anything, but I don't understand why people do wrong and then expect the outcome to be right. Like, no. So I don't even think we need to even go on this live, to be honest. I just think the reality is that, we spend so much time advocating for people who are in the wrong. Point blank period. Point blank period. Point blank period. And America is gonna be America. You know what I mean? You're not about to get a slap on the wrist. And the truth is, like, I know we don't really get into it all the time. Now, I'm not gonna say on average, because on average there is some injustice in sentencing and things like that, and we still have a long way to go. But other people, I know, white people, like, people be getting shot by the police. Yeah, we just don't really, it doesn't really phase us because it's like, you know, we're just not used to seeing that. You know what I mean? So it kind of just rubs off. Like, we like, okay, who cares? You know what I mean? Who cares if this white man is getting 30 years? We don't, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really, it doesn't really click. Like, okay, yeah, a lot of people be getting, you know, it's just like it doesn't really register because we're so used to just paying attention to black people and their sentences. But yeah, white people be getting shot up by the police too, and they be acting crazy. People do. Some people do dumb things for attention. That is true. You're right. And that's the thing that's kind of scary today too when you think about like coming online. A lot of people really want to go viral. I think people think that like just sharing all your business and being online and doing the absolute most is the lottery ticket today. It's like the modern day lottery ticket. So a lot of people are absolutely willing to take that chance. But it's sad. It's really sad. I don't know what her MO was, but I think for her to come online and, try to boo-hoo, it was just strange. Very strange. If you're that traumatized to where you're running to the mall, dashing through the mall to the car, the last thing I'm gonna do is come online. Oh, wow. No, I didn't hear about, that girl slapping the celebrity. That's crazy. No, I didn't hear that, girl. That's insane. Yeah, y'all know what I think. I think people are losing their minds today. I think the mind gone. I think if you are in your right mind, I'm being so serious. You have to praise the Lord. I'm serious because you're blessed. Seriously. Mind gone. People mind be gone. Mind gone. I don't know what it is. People lost it. The mind is not there. The screws are not screwing. Okay, the neurons are not connecting. It's not looking good for a lot of people mentally. Like I said, we're so reactive and so charged. I couldn't believe this creator. I'm like, lady, we ain't even seen the video. And my first thought is like, she definitely was stealing. So what are we talking about? You know what I mean? What are we doing? So what? She deserves to steal. So what? She deserves to steal and run out of the store. Oh, okay. Like what? What? That's insane. You know what I mean? That's insane. Wrong is wrong, period. But if you weren't wrong, then you wouldn't have been tackled. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have been, nobody would have had to come after you. So, hey, wrong is wrong at the end of the day. But no, I did not hear about that. That's insane. Yeah, like I said, people just hey, listen. It's rare you meet people in their right mind today. I think we've all lost it. You got just I don't know what it is with social media. Child, I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I do think a lot of people are starting to do more and more things for attention. I think a lot of people just want to go viral, and the sad thing is, it's all for a moment. Virality is so fluid and so fleeting. That's why we love, I ain't gonna say we, but people love a gossip blog about celebrities and how they got to go back and work a job. Well, yeah, most famous people are going to have to work a job. You know what I mean? Because it's so fleeting. You can be up to date, down tomorrow, and it's a sad thing when they try to stay on top. When it's like, yeah, you make all that money, you spend all that money. Well, yeah, it's at some point you are gonna have to probably get a job. I mean, that's America. You know what I mean? Like, hello, you're not gonna be on top forever. You know what I mean? It's always gonna be somebody else coming out. So I don't know what it is. I really don't, but that's crazy. She ought to be ashamed of herself though if she really did make up that just story just to kind of go famous. And it's sad too because I hate that it always kind of continues this racial divide that's very unserious. You know what I mean? Like we have bigger things to worry about right now, right? With the current state of the world, and to be kind of fighting these little petty things that just kind of keep us divided. Like this girl, they ain't got nothing to do with slavery. They don't have nothing to do with slavery. What are we talking about? You see these content creators who have a very large platform, and it's like that those are the dominant voices. So I think even as, black educators and scholars, like I think we have a responsibility as well. Because it's not just black people who's looking at our content. We don't really know who's looking at our content, right? We come online. So I think we have a responsibility as well to, educate black people, be conscious, but also not divisive, in a way that's harmful. You know, I'm not saying we have to be the leaders of the nation, but I mean, hello. You know what I mean? I mean, let's not be reckless here. You know what I mean? Y'all know what it is. I think if we want to be heard and we really want progress to be made, then I think we need to, it's not about, palatability, but I do think it's, let's make it in a way that can be received. That's the purpose of the work, I would hope. Conversations about segregation. I mean, come on, that's redundant. We're not going back. If that's what you think, we're never going back. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think we are actually, or at least I would say, I'm not gonna say allyship because I do think allyship is kind of fake today, but I do think that, we are making a lot more progress than we have before. You know what I mean? I think progress is being made, but I do think there's an attempt to reenact some of the old things. You know what I mean? Some of the old ways of being and thinking and moving. And I just don't think it's really helpful to black people to think that way. I was thinking about this new matcha place that's like local. Y'all know I've been talking about black businesses. And the it's like it's only open on like a few days a week for a few hours, right? And so it's like this is why these conversations don't work when you start talking about, oh, black people need to do this and that. Okay, well, here we have the black coffee shop, right? They're only open a few days a week for a few hours. Right? That's not going to pay nobody's bills. That's not going to like, you know what I mean? So it's just like we have to stop this because that's not realistic. I think for me, what I think about like for many African American people and what I would love to see, definitely educated. definitely empowered and enlightened, in regards to the ways of the world. I don't think it's a matter of like cowering or, just the things that we've had to do in the past to kind of endure. I don't really think it's about that, but I also don't think it's about being so how can I say this? I don't think it's about being so loud, you know what I mean, in our expressions of ourselves, in a way that really kind of like paints over the things that we are still dealing with or things that we haven't really dealt with in our community. Like for example, like we do have criminality. You know what I mean? Like that is a big thing. And if you actually listen to the many criminals, like people who've been incarcerated and things like that, why they do what they do and so forth, people feel entitled. You know what I mean? They feel entitled. To have anything in American society requires a lot of hard work. And now young people today are being told that hard work doesn't matter. So people are feeling apathetic. They're feeling hopeless, right? So it's like, okay, it doesn't matter if I'm not going to work hard. If I'm going to work hard, it's not going to get me anywhere. But that's the thing. We hear so much from people who failed. You know what I mean? And we don't realize that that's just not the reality. You said FBA. What is FBA? What do I think of FBA? Of the topic again, but I'm really curious what you think. Keystar, what is FBA? I'm not sure what FBA is. I don't know why when I think FBA, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe explain that for me. But yeah, y'all. So I don't know. I just think for me, realistically, like you have to be somebody who's self-sufficient. You want to be able to provide a comfortable life for your family. I don't think we have to be moving in the ways in which we've had to move in the past, right? Like and those who've come before us, okay? Like we don't have to that's not the movement today. You know what I mean? That's not the work that we're doing today. And I just think that that's kind of where it gets lost on us. So we don't have to come out and be that. Well, like I think for me it's like I've seen the lives of many people who have not taken that path, right? The path of honest hard work. And and it's not about money. You know what I mean? It's not about money. It's not about, do what you love, that's fine, but just be aware of what you're signing up for. Be aware of the shortcomings that are going to come with that. And ask yourself, is that something you can really live with? Because I think for a lot of people, I don't think that they can. Foundational Black American. What do I think of foundational Black Americans? Okay, foundational Black American. You mean like just Black people? Um, because are you referring to for like African immigrants? Like, what do you mean by when you say foundational Black Americans? I know that's not a foundation. Surely that's not a foundation. Like, I know that's not like NAACP. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say foundational Black American? You should be shoplifting here. I see. Well, yeah, I mean, and so that's the thing. Like, criminality is a very real thing in our community, and we don't really like to talk about it. And we can never get to these issues when we're constantly being reactive to things that are like, it's a movement now. I remember when they were doing like all of these hits, like they were going to Louis Vuitton. I'll never forget it. It was like post pandemic or during the pandemic. Do you guys remember that? There were all of these videos of like these young guys just going into Louis Vuitton, taking all these bags. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. So I guess if you're saying like foundational Black Americans, let me say this too. Identity politics has been like there's so much that's happening now in the way people identify. Like at first it started with the he, she, they, them, they, and now it's like, everyone's got a different version of like some people are like, African American, Black American. So I'm like, is that what you mean when you say foundational? Um, if that's the movement, then maybe I can answer your question. So let me know what you mean by that. Like when you say foundational, are you just talking about like Black people? I'm kind of black and white when it comes to that. Like, if you identify as Black, if you're Black, yeah. What do I think about them? I mean, I'm Black. I mean, what do you mean? Like, what do I think of them in regards to what? Like existence, being, shoplifting. But yeah, you guys. So right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't encourage Black people to engage in criminality. I don't care how unfair the system is and how long it takes to make an honest living. Like I'm never going to encourage that because I know the consequences for you are going to be so severe that is going to outweigh any little petty crime that you're trying to commit. Black American people who are separating from the general Black. You mean like the people who are like going like MAGA? Or, I call them the black maggots. Were you talking about like MAGA? Or are you talking about like, people who are like just going way deep into, white culture and they're like interracial dating and like the whoop de whoop. Like, what do you mean when you say like, and I want to say this too, Keystar, because I don't want to work you too hard, girl. Yeah, I see your Abby. Let me just say this, I'm on socials, but not really. I try to be very mindful of my engagement in social media. So I say that to say, like, I'm online, but like not really. Like I literally just got offline and looking at that Zara clip or whatever, and that's what made me go live. But like I'm not on TikTok anymore. I was, but I'm not on TikTok anymore. I make, when I am on Instagram, it's like on a back page and it's very sparingly. Like I use Instagram very sparingly. So I'm not online as much as I used to be because I just think it's so crazy. And, you know, online kind of just distorts reality a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it makes you feel like things are bigger than they actually are. And like it makes you think that people think in a certain way because a video or a page or whatever has a lot of likes. But like I don't think people think that way in real life, if that makes sense. Or maybe I try to just kind of separate myself from that because I know how influential social media can be, right? Because I think if I was probably online for the last week or month or so, I too probably would have been reactionary, right, about that whole Zara situation, right? And it's like, so sometimes I have to just take a step back. So I say all that to say, sometimes y'all, I'm a little out of the loop when it comes to certain things. And I do that intentionally so that I can be grounded in my reality, in my observations, and in my truth, because like I said, I just think social media amplifies things that aren't necessarily really there. Um, Now I will say though, like it is kind of starting to scare me because I think social media is impacting us so much so that people really are altering their lives. Now, I talked about that on my podcast a long time ago when I started to realize how people were just like really making crazy decisions, like very big life altering decisions based on the things that they would see and hear online. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I think that from that moment, I started being more conscious about my social media use because I'm like, nah, this can be really bad. But yeah, I think people who are moving away from the Black diasporas, I think it's about self-hate. And then I also think it's about a lack of progress in our community to address communal harm, being like emotional violence. We always talk about physical violence, but like emotional violence, verbal, but I would say verbal violence, like you can kind of see this too online. Like if a video goes viral and people disagree, the way black people will dog pile in the comments and it's so mean. You know what I mean? So that kind of translates into like bullying and things like that if you've been to public school. So yeah, I think people like in part, I think people are fed up. And then I think, the other aspect of that is I think well, something I've actually been thinking a lot about is the Black peer group and just how, when it comes to being a Black person, right, there is this level of like popularity that affords you community with other Black people. And if you don't think like the vast majority of us, if you don't move like the vast majority of us, right, which unfortunately does oftentimes align with a very pejorative stereotype, you will be isolated. And that is also why I think a lot of people are choosing to um separate themselves from the vast majority of African American people because it's like we've always kind of had a really big culture for popularity and it's not something that just starts in high school. It carries through everything, right? And so it's like whatever's hot, whatever's trending, whatever is the thing that's on the forefront in regards to entertainment, if you the way you look, the way you think, you know what I mean, the way you talk, the way you act, like if you don't align with that, you are sort of like a castaway and it's going to be really hard for you to be in community with other African American people. And I don't always think that people are aware of that. I don't always think people are conscious of that. I also don't think that every black person is struggling with that, right? But on average, yeah. And so I think for a lot of people who just kind of don't fit in, you know what I mean, so to speak, in regards to that, dominant popular black culture, I think that they just kind of choose to follow away because I think if you're trying to fit into that space and you're somebody who may be a little bit more alternative and you want to be seen, it is a very isolating thing and you could start to have like internal insecurities. I mean, it's serious. You know what I mean? It's a real thing. And I think as much as we we don't we you know, you think it's like it's not a thing, but it really is. So I think for a lot of people who don't identify with our like dominant culture, I think that's what makes them start to seek other um just other communities, right? To have community and to have relationships and to be seen and maybe even, respected for their values and the things that dominant cultures and popularity and things like that, like people who kind of resonate with that sense of shallowness, they don't look deeper beneath the surface. And so I think people who kind of choose to, separate themselves from that, I think they start to find people who actually align with their values. And I think if they happen to be of another race, then that's kind of what it is. It does move fast. But okay, y'all, I'm gonna go. My baby's taking a nap. But I think that overall, yeah, it's something else. So right is right, wrong is wrong. All right, see you guys later. Bye.